Have you ever looked at your life and felt detached, as if you're moving through the days wearing a name, a role, a smile, but none of it truly belongs to you? You meet expectations, say the right things, follow the script, and yet something inside you whispers, "This isn't it." The Stoics taught that a man can conquer the world and still be a stranger to himself. That true peace does not come from status, applause, or even comfort, but from alignment with one's inner nature. But how many of us have mistaken the noise of others for the voice within? Since childhood, we've been trained to be pleasing, polished, presentable, at the cost of being real, and over time, the performance becomes the person, until one day we no longer know the difference. What if the life you're living isn't really yours? And what if the self you're defending was never really you? In this video, we'll walk a quiet path inward to challenge illusion, uncover what's been hidden, and explore what it truly means to live from within. Take a breath. Stay with me. Let's begin. Number 1. The mask of the persona. From a young age, you were taught to adapt, to fit in, to be polite, to avoid conflict. Maybe you were told not to speak unless spoken to. Maybe you learned that being agreeable earned you praise, while showing anger or sadness made others uncomfortable. So, you adjusted. You smiled when you didn't feel joy. You acted confident while carrying doubt. You molded yourself into a version of you that others would accept. But here's the truth. That version isn't the real you. What you built was not a self, but a mask. A collection of reactions, roles, and rehearsed behaviors meant to survive in a world that often values performance over authenticity. And though this mask may have served you at times, earning approval, avoiding rejection, it came at a quiet cost. Over time, you stopped knowing where the act ends and where your essence begins. The Stoics warned us of this trap, not in modern language, but in the language of virtue, reason, and self-governance. Marcus Aurelius spoke of being true to the soul's guiding principle, the hegemonikon, that inner fire which, if left unguarded, dims beneath the weight of imitation and approval-seeking. He reminded himself daily, "Be neither distracted by pleasure nor disheartened by pain. Be what you are." The danger is not in wearing a mask from time to time, it's in forgetting you're wearing it at all. Ask yourself, how many times have you said yes to things you didn't believe in, just to avoid disappointing someone? How often have you laughed along with a group, knowing their words or actions didn't align with your values? How many moments have you betrayed your own sense of right and wrong? Not because you were weak, but because you were conditioned to think that being liked mattered more than being true. Stoicism calls us back to the essence, to remember that our worth does not come from applause or conformity, but from how closely we live in accordance with reason, courage, justice, and discipline. The mask, no matter how refined or admired, is still an illusion, and an illusion cannot sustain the soul. The moment we mistake the act for the self, we begin to suffer. We feel hollow, even when surrounded by people. We achieve things, yet they feel meaningless. We are praised, yet it doesn't land, because deep down, we know the praise was never for the real us, only for the character we've been playing. So how do you return to your true self? You stop performing. You begin to observe. You catch yourself in the moment, choosing silence over truth, choosing flattery over honesty, and you pause, not to judge, but to remember, to realign, to return to yourself. This is not easy. The world often rewards masks and punishes authenticity. But the Stoic path has never been about ease. It is about freedom. and no one is free who is ruled by the need to be liked. So strip away what is false, not all at once, but deliberately. Let your words reflect your beliefs. Let your actions follow your values. Let your inner and outer lives become one. And when you feel lost, remember this: your true self was never gone, only buried, covered by layers of fear, approval, and forgetting. To uncover it is not to add anything new, but to remove what was never truly yours to begin with. Number 2, the inner force you're afraid to face. If the mask is what you wear to be accepted, then what you've hidden underneath, your unspoken impulses, your denied instincts, your quiet rage, is the wildness you've tried to silence. But Stoicism teaches us, what you avoid does not die. It waits, it watches, and if you refuse to face it, it will rule your life from behind the scenes. Most people don't even know they've been hiding. Since childhood they were told, don't be too loud, don't cry, don't question. So they learned to bury parts of themselves. The bold part, the honest part, the sensitive, angry, curious part. Not because these traits were wrong, but because they were inconvenient for others. Over time, we learn to present a version of ourselves that is polished, manageable, and safe. But this version is not the whole of who we are, and the more we rely on it, the more disconnected we become. We begin to sense that something inside us is missing, but we don't know what. We feel restless, short-tempered, or numb. We overreact to minor things. We sabotage relationships. We chase success, but feel no peace when we get there. These aren't random symptoms. They are signs that something within us is trying to break through. The Stoics never asked us to suppress our nature. They asked us to understand it. Know thyself, they said, not to indulge every impulse, but to guide them with reason. The untrained mind is chaotic, not because it is evil, but because it is undisciplined. And nothing can be disciplined if it is ignored. So what is this hidden part of you trying to say? Perhaps it's your creativity, long denied because it didn't seem practical. Perhaps it's your capacity for anger, suppressed because you were taught that being calm is always better. Perhaps it's your longing to be seen, to speak honestly, to act without performance. These are not weaknesses. These are sources of strength waiting to be integrated. But to integrate them, you must stop running. You must turn inward and sit in silence with yourself. You must feel the discomfort of what you've rejected. That's where the Stoic path begins. Not in perfect control, but in perfect honesty. The discipline comes later. First comes awareness. Then the work of shaping that rawness into character, of refining instinct into intention, of choosing who you will become, not based on fear, but on clarity. When you do this, you'll notice a shift. The same things that once triggered you now become teachers. The same emotions that once controlled you now offer insight. You become less reactive, more grounded, not because you've silenced what's inside, but because you've finally heard it and you've chosen to lead. And this is where power begins. Not by pretending the chaos isn't there, but by stepping into it with the calm of a mind that has trained itself not to flinch. So ask yourself, what have I buried? What part of me is waiting to be reclaimed? Because true freedom, as the Stoics taught, does not come from conquering the world. It comes from mastering yourself, and you cannot master what you are too afraid to see. Number 3, becoming whole, the return to yourself. If the mask is what you wear for the world, and the untamed impulses within are what you've hidden in fear, then what remains, what lies beneath all of it, is your true nature, not the version shaped by opinion, approval, or avoidance, but the quiet essence you were born with, the part of you that is untouched by applause or shame, the part that has been waiting. To the Stoics, the journey of life was not about becoming something new. It was about returning to what you already are, but have forgotten. It is not a search for something external. It is the reawakening of something internal, the fusion of reason, virtue, and courage. That is the self. Not a vague ideal, but a way of being that aligns with nature, justice, and clarity. But here's the hard truth. You cannot return to yourself without first shedding what you are not. And that process is not peaceful. It is a confrontation. You must confront the roles you've played, the choices you've made to belong, the moments when you silenced your own judgment just to fit into a world that never truly knew you. This confrontation demands a rare kind of courage, not the courage to fight others, but to look at yourself without flinching. Many never begin this journey. Why? Because it asks too much. It threatens the comfort of certainty. It threatens the stories you've told yourself about who you are. It whispers a question that terrifies the ego. What if much of what I've built was never truly mine? The fear of losing what is false often outweighs the desire to discover what is real. And so people stay stuck in masks, living out roles that win them applause, but cost them peace. They chase goals that don't fulfill them. They form relationships that feel hollow. They succeed and yet feel empty. Why? Because they're living far from themselves. But the Stoic path invites a different kind of success. Not outward achievement, but inward sovereignty. The moment you begin to observe yourself honestly, the moment you begin to act not out of habit, but out of alignment with principle, something changes. A subtle but unmistakable sense of clarity begins to rise. You stop seeking validation. You begin to feel free, not because life becomes easier, but because your decisions are finally your own. You begin to choose based on reason, not fear. You begin to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. And what once confused you, your frustrations, your repeated mistakes, your emotional storms, now begin to make sense. Because you're no longer looking outside for answers. You're listening inward. This is not just philosophy. This is power. Quiet power. And yet, there is one crucial truth. No one can walk this path alone. The Stoics emphasize the importance of friendship, dialogue, and community, not for validation, but for reflection. Marcus Aurelius often wrote to himself, "Yes," but he was surrounded by wise teachers and courageous peers. He sharpened his judgment through discourse. He tested his ideas against life, not in isolation. Your thoughts, your reactions, your inner turbulence, they are shaped not only by your will, but also by the world around you. If you never examine what has influenced your beliefs, you will mistake noise for wisdom. You must learn to pause and ask, is this thought mine or inherited? This ambition, was it born of my values or my fear of not being enough? Returning to yourself is not a single moment. It is a daily practice of discipline, honesty, and stillness. It is the art of living on purpose. And the more you do, the more life begins to reveal its meaning, not through dramatic events, but through small certainties. You'll know when you've touched your essence, not because the world will celebrate you, but because for once, you won't feel the need to explain yourself to anyone. Number 4, the ancient patterns that shape you. The mind, as the Stoics understood, is not merely the sum of thoughts you think on the surface. Beneath your choices, your habits, and even your desires, There operate forces older than your memory, patterns not invented by you, but inherited from the condition of being human. And unless you learn to see them, you will be ruled by them. These patterns, ancient and powerful, are the inner roles we instinctively assume throughout life. Some people are drawn to protect, some to challenge, others to lead, and others still to seek solitude and wisdom. These are not labels. They are inclinations, echoes from the soul. They are the symbolic shapes your life begins to form, long before you have the language to explain them. Have you ever wondered why certain stories stir something deep inside you? Why the tale of the brave wanderer, the silent sage, the misunderstood rebel, or the nurturing protector feels so strangely familiar, as if it were your own? It's not by accident. These patterns are sewn into the human experience. They're not imposed by society. They're awakened in you, and each one reveals a part of who you are meant to become. But here's where it gets dangerous, when you cling to just one. The person who sees themselves only as the strong one may learn to suppress all vulnerability, never asking for help, never showing softness, always bracing for the next fight. The one who plays the role of the giver may begin to vanish in service to others, forgetting their own needs, their own path. And the thinker, if consumed by reflection, may use contemplation as a shield to avoid action altogether. Stoic wisdom does not ask you to reject these inner roles. It asks you to balance them. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor and a philosopher, was not only a leader, but also a seeker of inner peace. Epictetus, once a slave, became a teacher who understood both endurance and transcendence. They embodied more than one dimension of character, and so must you. If you never reflect on which inner role dominates you, you risk becoming a servant to it. You may repeat the same choices, attract the same relationships, suffer the same emptiness, without ever understanding why. These patterns live in your impulses, your recurring emotions, your habits of reaction. They are subtle, but they are not invisible. You can see them if you are willing to look. And when you do see them, when you name them, not with shame but with clarity, you reclaim your agency. The courage of the warrior, the tenderness of the nurturer, the wisdom of the guide, the boldness of the reformer, they are all within you. But you must decide which to awaken and when. To live wisely, the Stoics taught, is to govern oneself, not to be possessed by your instincts, nor to reject them, but to understand their place, to see when your inner roles serve you and when they enslave you. Most people never do this. They live in repetition. They feel exhausted by burdens they cannot name, frustrated by outcomes they don't understand. And the reason is simple. They are not living from within. They are being lived by something they've never examined. The Stoic path is not only about controlling your thoughts, it's about observing the source of those thoughts, knowing when the impulse to act comes from virtue or from an inherited script you've never questioned. When you understand the ancient roles shaping your character, you don't need to destroy them. You learn to use them with intention, and in doing so, you become free, not because you are above them, but because you are no longer blind to them. That is the quiet difference between those who walk through life on purpose and those who are merely carried by its current. Number 5. The price of living against your nature. What happens to a person who spends their entire life avoiding themselves, who hides from their inner conflicts, performs a role to please the world, and never dares to ask the most fundamental question, who am I, really? The Stoics were clear. Avoiding yourself does not preserve peace. It destroys it slowly from within. Many people believe that as long as they do what is expected, as long as they stay within the lines drawn by others, family, society, tradition, they will be safe. But this safety is a mirage. Beneath the surface, something begins to unravel. It shows up as anxiety that has no name, as restlessness in the midst of success, as a quiet frustration in a life that, from the outside, looks complete. You can follow all the rules and still feel like something essential is missing. The body knows. The mind knows. When you live far from your truth, your soul, what the Stoics called the ruling principle, starts to protest, not through dramatic collapse, but through the subtle erosion of meaning, through destructive patterns that repeat endlessly. Ever met someone who sabotages every opportunity, who keeps choosing the same toxic relationships, who lives in quiet misery though they can't explain why? This is the life of someone who never stopped to reflect, who never dared to break the mirror and look past the mask. And the consequences are deeper than mere dissatisfaction. When we live disconnected from our nature, we eventually grow resentful. At first, the resentment is vague, aimed at the world, the system, other people. But over time, it turns inward. It becomes fatigue, apathy, even despair. Many spend decades like this, performing routines, meeting expectations, smiling when they want to scream, all while slowly losing the will to live fully. They confuse survival with living, obedience with virtue, silence with peace. But beneath it all is a longing they cannot name. The Stoics never promised that truth would be comfortable. They only promised that it would set you free. There is a way out, but it is not an escape. It is a return to what is essential. To stop running from your inner contradictions and begin facing them with courage. To no longer blame the world for your unrest, but to look within and ask, what part of me have I abandoned? This is not a pleasant process. It requires strength, discipline, and unwavering honesty. But the reward is priceless. The return of your agency, your capacity to choose, your ability to live without pretending, without constantly seeking permission to exist. And so now we arrive at the most vital question of all. What does it actually mean to live as your true self? To speak, act, and decide without masks, without fear of judgment, without the need to perform. That's where we go next. Number 6. Walking the path back to yourself. Becoming your true self is not a goal you suddenly reach. It is not a revelation that strikes like lightning, nor a label you earn from others. It is a quiet, lifelong practice, a continuous unfolding, a daily return to what is essential within you, a path of shedding illusions, breaking borrowed identities, and standing naked before the truth. Few walk this path, not because they are incapable, but because they are afraid. The majority settle for conformity. They dress their lives in the garments of approval. They play the roles assigned to them, child, spouse, employee, citizen, without ever asking if these roles reflect their deeper nature. They cling to comfort because they believe that without it, they will lose love, belonging, or worth. But the Stoics would ask, is a life ruled by fear truly a life at all? The cost of this fear is heavy. It is the quiet death of authenticity. A life that appears full on the outside, but feels hollow at its core. When you trade your truth for acceptance, you gain neither peace nor freedom, only the slow ache of disconnection from yourself and from life itself. True freedom, the kind Marcus Aurelius wrote of, lies not in fitting in, but in aligning with your own ruling principle, your hegemonicon, that inner voice shaped by reason, virtue, and clarity. To live from that place is to accept yourself fully, both strength and fragility, wisdom and foolishness, light and shadow. It is to live without shame, not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. Living as your true self means refusing to be a puppet of external praise or criticism. It means recognizing that your value was never meant to be outsourced to others' expectations. You are not a product of your culture, your past, or your fears. You are the author of your response to all of it. But this kind of life takes courage. Courage to let go of comfort. Courage to confront the parts of yourself you've denied. Courage to admit that much of what you've become was a performance, perhaps necessary once, but no longer needed. And yet, this admission is not defeat. It is liberation. Because once you stop pretending to be who you thought you should be, you make space for something infinitely more powerful, who you actually are. Not in theory, but in practice, in every decision, every action, every quiet moment where no one is watching but your own soul. And from that place, life stops being something you endure. It becomes something you shape, deliberately, courageously, and unapologetically. That is what it means to live aligned with your true self. So let me ask you, are you truly ready for this journey? Ready to question the stories you've carried for years, even the ones you thought defined you? Are you willing to look at the parts of yourself you've hidden, not with shame, but with courage? Because the life you long for, the one that feels real, grounded and free, begins the moment you stop pretending and start returning to who you are. If something in this video resonated with you, even just a sentence, pause and honor that feeling. Let it speak. And if you'd like to share, drop a comment below with just 2 or 3 words that capture what stayed with you. Your inner call, breaking illusion, coming home. Whatever it is, say it out loud. Let's make this real. And if this stirred something in you, don't stop here. The next step is waiting. There's more to explore, more layers to uncover, more clarity to gain. The next video will take us even deeper into the hidden mechanisms that shape our choices, our fears, and the way we show up in the world. If you're ready to keep walking this path, hit subscribe. Not because you have to, but because some journeys deserve to be walked with intention. You're not alone in this, and the best is still ahead. Let's keep going.